Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pop Culture Problems, the show where we talk about stuff and junk and all the things that you care about. I'm Josh Nichols, and I'm here with Sir Oderman.
Sir Oderman. Wow.
Sir Oderman.
I've already gotten like a promotion, and this is
you used to be John of the Oderman fame, but I didn't think that was quite. I didn't think it was quite representative of how great you were.
I appreciate that, Josh. And you know, the thing is I'm not going to give you that kind of props because I don't know how this is going to turn out yet. So we'll see how it goes before I start throwing around titles.
Any episode can be completely ruined just by one or two comments from myself.
Well, I think one comment from myself could ruin an episode. So,
well, okay. Speaking of episodes, including this one, we're going to talk about something a little frightening, a little scary. Movies that petrify you.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them, especially from when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I spent my entire childhood terrified, but I couldn't get enough of it. You know, like whether it be like mummies, vampires, aliens, supernatural, paranormal stuff. I just ate it all up, and I couldn't stop reading books about it and couldn't stop watching movies. I wouldn't say I wet the bed a lot, but I was on the cusp.
So would you say that you're a kind of a horror movie junkie? Are you a scary movie junkie? Like you like the thrill seeking? Is it an adrenaline rush?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think, you know, there's a kind of a being scared is kind of a cool feeling. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I do. I think there's a good scared and a bad scared, and I'll segue just a little bit here. As far as rides go, like a carnival or an amusement park, I'm very much a fan of like spinny, but not uppy downy. Uppy downy, especially like when I'm on an airplane and it drops, I get this feeling like I'm going to have a panic attack or a heart attack or something. It's not a good scare. Like I don't feel excited or good. It's not adrenaline. If I'm on a spinny ride, I get that feeling of merry-go-round. I'm going around. It's fun.
So it's like a guttural thing, right? Like where it like kind of feels like your gut drops out from underneath you.
Yeah, and I hate that feeling.
And you know what? I when I was a little kid, I got that from movies. And there's still some movies that I get that from.
And so that feeling you associated with good? Or
not good, but like maybe like more of a feeling like I'm alive type of thing.
Okay. See, I don't like that feeling. Like the good scared is again that excitement of like, you know, wee, and I can kind of go around, and I guess that's not a scared feeling, but like I can watch movies with gore and it doesn't affect me.
It doesn't bother me at all, yeah.
You know, I don't have any feeling towards that. I can watch a scary movie with like, jump scares and things like that. And I like that feeling of being on the edge of my seat a little bit, where I'm kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? Am I going to get scared? Yeah. But then again, like aliens in movies, those real found footage or Signs, M. Night Shyamalan, that petrifies me. Like, it's not even a good feeling. It's one of my favorite movie Signs, and I can go back to it and watch it now and feel that. But the first time I watched it, because it was something really scary to me and unknown, it was bad.
The found footage from like Mexico or whatever it is. Oh yeah. I remember seeing that movie in the theater, and I was sitting about in the middle of the theater, and I'm like looking around myself the entire time after that because it's like there's aliens in this theater and they're going to jump and they're going to kill me.
I recall going to Signs after I got done at work, and I got off at like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and they had like a special midnight showing or something, and so it was like pitch black out. I had walked from work to the theater, so I was going to probably have to walk home. And it's in the middle of the night, and like I didn't want to leave the theater. I was like, no.
Well, the scene is set so well in that movie with whether it be the music or I mean I think it was perfectly cast. I mean, you got the Culkin kid who's just a creepy little kid. You've got is it Abigail Breslin? As a little girl, and both of those kids, like they could not have cast, I think, kids that were more creepy. I mean, they just did such a great job.
Yeah, and see, that's the weird thing for me is Signs is I don't think it was marketed as a horror movie. It was a science fiction suspense
more like
thriller.
Suspense, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a horror movie, but that movie, because it was more grounded in real life, it was real, the way I would see real people reacting in those situations that may be fictional, I see it as being more scary. The only movies that are a little outside of the normal that scared me were the ones I watched as kids. The two movies that we're going to have nightmares tonight about this because I'm mentioning the names of them. I'm invoking the names of the horror movie. Silver Bullet, Stephen King's Silver Bullet, Gary Busey, Troll is the other movie. And those two I watched as a kid, and they petrified me. And they're furthest thing from reality.
Mm-hmm.
There's not real reactions. They're campy. They're, bad 80s flicks. But those petrify me. And I think it was because I saw them as a kid.
Well, and I think, touching back just quickly on Signs to just tie this together here, I think one of the things that is really compelling about like the really scary movies that I think both of us think are scary is that you've got those good like child actors in there. And I think that's an element of a really scary movie is where you've got those child actors that do a good job of, I think that the real fear is like kind of that like loss of innocence and like how they're vulnerable and how they're being exposed to this like otherworldly or something that's totally out of their control. Like, I mean, the suspension of disbelief that an adult can stand up to this is like I think there, but like somebody like 4 or 5 year old Abigail Breslin, she's not going to be able to stand up to aliens that are invading from another world.
Oh, yeah. Or Rory Culkin with the asthma and things like that. I mean, they're vulnerable in a sense.
But you get Corey Haim, Silver Bullet.
Well, you got Gary Busey in Silver Bullet, and Gary Busey is kind of a, just his teeth alone will shine the werewolves into oblivion. It's kind of his silver bullet of sorts. I think the other thing is in a movie, I have to put myself into their position and see that fear. And it's kind of odd because I can compartmentalize. I hate snakes. Don't put a snake near me. Don't put a snake in my general vicinity. Don't tell me there's a snake in the room.
You are basically Indiana Jones.
I am Indiana Jones. Yes. And I do dabble in a little exploring on the side. I'm a huskier than he was, but I do my best. I would say that I'm like a male Laura Croft.
Okay. Yeah.
It's mainly because of my breasts, because my man boobs. But again, snakes don't want anything to do with them in real life. I love watching snake documentaries and things like that. I think that they're cool looking. I never want to get up close to see them, but you can see things on those nature shows, and I can compartmentalize, and I'm not scared. My girlfriend, she hates spiders in real life, doesn't want to watch them on TV. She gets upset by the CGI ones in movies. So, she doesn't like that.
So would in theory, a movie dealing with reptilian aliens be terrifying for you?
No. And see, that's where I'm off base. Snakes, don't want them in real life, but I can handle them, in a TV show. So you would think that I would be scared by them because I could put myself in the documentarian shoes and say, oh, there's a snake and I'm scared. But it's more so the real life experiences that would cause death, dismemberment, loss of family. So in Signs, as an example, my favorite scene in Signs, one of my favorite scenes in any movie is the scene where they sit down to dinner and they're having their last meal. And it was such a powerful scene because they're sitting around talking about the last thing they're ever going to eat. And the dad is trying to give them exactly what they want because he knows it might be the last time he ever sees them. And I'm sitting there and thinking, how gut-wrenching, that's why this is scary. And so
because it's so realistic.
Oh,
yeah.
And
you'd want to do that for your kids.
The next scene, when I'm waiting for the alien to pop out and scare the crap out of me, I'm really scared because I'm like, once he does, this is it. It's over. And that's where I put myself in the shoes. And I think that's maybe the difference. There's something fictional and it's something life-threatening versus snakes, which because they're real and you can imagine what's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to go to the
snake with fire.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the emergency room. I'm going to get antivenom. You can kind of run through the process. Even though it's scary, there's remedies.
Yeah.
In that movie, there's no remedies.
They don't. They're that much more advanced because they're able to get to Earth. I mean, how do you fight that?
Exactly. Yeah. The Paranormal Activities. Those movies didn't scare me because the whole notion of a ghost, it's creepy to me. But in that movie, it kind of, I don't know. There was a disconnect for me. It didn't feel like The Sixth Sense. And it's another M. Night Shyamalan movie, but again, it wasn't as grounded to me. It kind of seemed a little bit more possessed and things like that. It didn't seem like ghosts.
That type of stuff is terrifying to me.
Really,
being like a lifelong Catholic who's believes in how demonic possession, I think could be real.
Yeah,
I think I lean more towards that. It is like the movie The Exorcist is absolutely terrifying to me.
Really,
The Exorcism of Emily Rose, those movies that deal with that type of stuff. Paranormal Activity, because I think that's more of like a jump scare movie. That's not like really a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you'd even define The Exorcist as a psychological thriller, but we're talking about this and the TV just turned off, and that's possibly terrifying as well. But
do 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 do.
But I mean, that type of stuff. I mean, like there's some kind of like loose documentation of that stuff having happened in the past.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's.
Well, and I don't. I guess I maybe think that it has to do with things that happened to you as a kid. If you were scared of jump scares, I hypothesize that you were scared by like maybe you had an older brother that would always jump around corners and scare you, and maybe that's what leads you to be scared of jump scares. Growing up as a lifelong Catholic that believe that this is a possibility, maybe that scares you. And I don't know why aliens. I don't think I was ever abducted. I mean, I have random scars I don't know about.
See,
and
my older sister thinks my twin brother and I were.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we used to have nightmares all the time, and that's like one of the symptoms or whatever. But
okay, yeah. So I mean, I think it's what happened when you were a kid that maybe influenced that, and that's probably why I'm not as scared of the paranormal activities and stuff. And I like movies about ghosts and things like that. Exorcism of Emily Rose, one of my favorites. I haven't seen it in a long time, so maybe it's not as good as I remember. But Stigmata, I remember being a really good movie.
I don't know if I've ever seen that movie.
Oh, I thought it was a great movie. I thought
that's like right in my wheelhouse.
Oh yeah, I think they did a great job. And it was a '90s film. I can't remember the gal who played it. She was in a TV show that was. I have to look it up, but she was in a TV show about a kind of a paranormal thing. She was a medium. It's called Medium.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was that. Is that gal? She was in it, and I thought it was a good movie, but it wasn't at all scary to me. It didn't have that.
And I think it was really controversial when it first came out. And I think that the reason that the church was really upset about it was, the stigmatas. The movie, like I said, I haven't seen it, but the way it's been explained to me is that the stigmata was seen as like kind of a negative thing.
Yep.
But like the saints that have experienced the stigmata were really holy people.
Yeah.
So I mean, the stigmatas, it's like it's not a curse; it's a blessing. And I think that's why the church was. That's why it was such a controversial movie when it first came out. Was like the church was like, "Yeah, this is stupid. Don't go and see it."
Well, and I think you have that with all sorts of when you talk about religion or beliefs, and even we're talking about beliefs as far as ghosts or aliens or things that are supernatural. If you believe in it or you think it's feasible, you have a totally different perception of it. And me, I just like to keep an open mind.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
If ghosts are real, don't want to piss them off. If ghosts aren't real, okay, fine. No harm, no foul. I can watch a ghost movie. So, I think you have to tread lightly with some of those things. And also, I think it changes. When you're talking religion, it's almost like eggs. Are eggs bad for you? 1 year they're bad for you. Next year the yolks are okay. Next week the whites are okay.
They're going to give you cancer.
Exactly. And so I think it shifts with people's beliefs. And I think we've talked before about TV shows, how you can make something in a certain decade but not make it in this decade. And I think that's the same with belief systems and different things that people will be very vested in. Those alter.
Along those lines, I mean, is there anything that any movies that you're like terrified of that you're just like, yeah, there's no way that's real?
There's no way that's real. Well, I don't think so. I think the only movie in recent decades that has scared me, Signs, I think due to the alien thing, those two movies when I was a kid, and then The Fourth Kind, and here's the thing about that. I got through the first 45 minutes of that movie in the daylight at a lunch hour and turned it off and couldn't finish it. And I remember the second half being very like, okay, I know this is fake now.
But did you get to like the video of like the interview?
Yeah. That was powerful. I think it was towards the end where I think there was some bad CGI that kind of revealed that it was a fake video and stuff. But they had me hooked that this was real. Yeah, this was found footage. Yeah. This was actual stuff. And I didn't realize till later that they had, produced this footage.
But if you look into it though, there are disappearances in Nome, Alaska or in that area, like on a fairly regular basis where people just disappear.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what that movie was based on.
And I mean, for me, it would have been better if they had left off the last portion of the movie where they I
Agreed,
think they started to fill in the gaps and trying to complete the story a little bit. And it would have been much more petrifying if they had not done that. So those are the only movies I've been scared about. Now I remember, I think it was my mom and I went to a rummage sale or something, and we found this book in a box, 25 cents or something like that. And I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it. And I have wanted to look it up in the past, but actually I don't want to look it up because I don't even want to know about it. I remember getting this book, and I was not an avid reader, but this book looked interesting. It was about a haunted house, and it said, based on true events. And I thought, okay, let me take a look at it. Read like 10 pages, and I threw the book away. I literally disposed of it. I put it in the garbage can, and I made sure it got to the dumpster because it just felt wrong to be reading. It just shook me to my core. And ghosts are, I've not had any paranormal. And then the
book showed up on your family coffee table the next day.
Not quite, but that one shook me too. So it's not just movies; it's anything that kind of gives you that uneasy feeling that it could be real. I think inherently, if you think something is fake, you're not going to be scared by it.
Yeah,
like you almost have to believe that there's a possibility, and so. I think M. Night Shyamalan and a lot of other, directors who can make a movie in a way that it makes you believe that it could happen. And that's a little bit more scary. Even not petrifying. Interview with the Vampire. With Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. That's one of those realistic depictions of something that was likely fictional. But they did such a good job. It wasn't scary to me, but they did such a good job saying, like, if vampires exist, this is the organic, real way that it's going to happen.
See, and vampires are something that can still get me.
Really?
Yeah, like there are some movies like I'm blanking right now that like the Blade movies, like movies like that where they're kind of like the villains and there's somebody killing it. Like that's like the point of the movie is you've got these vampire hunters. Like I can handle those, but there was a movie that I've always been curious about because I saw the first half of the remake back on Sci-Fi Channel when I was in high school, and it was Salem's Lot.
Oh, okay.
They remade it in the 90s with Rob Lowe, and it's about this like writer that goes back to his hometown, and it's like slowly being taken over by vampires. Well, a couple months ago, I was like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can find that, and see if I can find it to download it and watch it. And I found it. And I didn't even get to when like the vampire first showed up. Like when like the vampire shows his face. Because like I was so terrified because Stephen King did such a great job. And Stephen King to this day says it's his favorite novel that he ever wrote.
No.
Because he just thought it was such a complete story, and it's just terrifying. These two boys are like walking home at night in the woods, and one of them shows up dead, and then like he's knocking on the really terrifying scene is this boy, his brother died, or went missing, and he's laying in bed one night. There's like a rapping on the window, and you see his like brother with like this ghostly face with like the vampire fangs sitting at the window, like asking his brother to let him in, and he opens the window, and this little boy like floats in on this second story window into his bedroom with his brother, and like bites his brother on the neck, and then his brother's in the hospital and stuff, and it like I'm gonna have to see this. I'm done.
So now was it the remake that you saw, or you saw the original?
No, like I saw the like the first half of the remake ends with the little boy at the window.
Oh, okay.
As far as maybe back in high school, I just turned it off because I was so terrified at that scene. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look up that movie and watch the original, because the original, it's probably gonna be a little bit campier. It's not gonna be like as realistic. No, I was wrong. It was terrifying.
I'm gonna have to look that one up now, because I do like a good vampire movie. I think I like those. I just think I like those kind of like. It seems as though it's a very ancient historical document. It almost feels like a documentary in a way when you're looking at these vampire movies, because a lot of times they'll either allude to, even if it's all set in present day, about how they've lived so long, or the things they've gone through. And when I think, imagine someone living for 300, 400, 500 years, and and try to put yourself in those shoes. Now, obviously, they're portrayed as evil, but in order for them to
Not
survive,
always,
they have to drink blood.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they've went through a lot of crap over 300 years that shaped them into the attitudes and the people they are. So you almost want to defend them a little bit.
Yeah, they're probably not really all that awful of people when they're not controlled by their bloodlust,
when they're controlled by their bloodlust.
But
have you seen Fright Night?
Yeah, and that's one of those movies where it's like the goal is to to save the I don't know, like Salem's Lot to me just got to me because it just seemed like everything was just like, it was just like a snowball where there's no way that these people are going to stand up to this because they're slowly taking over the town and they have no idea what's going on around them.
It depends on how you portray it too.
Yeah.
The old, I think it was in the 70s, Fright Night was very campy. And
Yes,
I mean, it had
yes.
Roddy McDowell,
Yeah,
it had
yeah.
Marcy Darcy from
yeah.
Married with Children.
Yeah.
Like, it had a little bit more of a fun feel to it.
Yes.
And it kind of lets you guard down. But like
Even
Salem's Lot,
even the remake kind of has like a fun feel to it with Colin Farrell.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
I think it was a Colin Farrell issue.
okay.
I think it was like, I don't know. I like the
Yeah.
original. But I think with those movies, it depends on how you go. Salem's Lot doesn't set out to be campy, I'm sure.
No,
it
not
sets
at all.
out to make you pee yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's its goal. With alien movies, Mars Attacks doesn't make me scared. Independence Day, it's hard to be scared when Jeff Goldblum's in the background. Like, I mean, those movies didn't set out to scare you. It didn't make you to set out to have feels.
Yeah, you're like, they set out to have fun and to be enjoyable. And I got to tell this story because I think it's pretty funny. But I had a friend in college who taught English in Hungary, in like this small town in Hungary. And Hungary is like right up around that Romanian, like Transylvania area. And we went over to visit her when I was a junior in college. My brother Jacob and a friend of ours went over there, and we spent 4 days in this small town in Hungary with this friend of mine. And we walked during the daylight hours to this restaurant on like the outskirts of town that was just out in the middle of nowhere. Woods all over, like this wooded area, like surrounded this lake. There's like old castles up on the hills and stuff. And we're walking back after the sun goes down, and I go, hey, how often do you like walk back from this restaurant? And she goes, oh, probably once a week, a couple times a month. And I say, have you ever thought about like, vampires and things like that? Because I mean, you're like right up next to Romania. And she was telling me how they go on field trips to Dracula's castle and stuff.
Oh, wow.
At this high school that she taught at. And she's like, I've never thought of that, but now I will every time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that.
I'm here for another 6 months, and that's all I'm going to think about every time I go to this restaurant.
Oh, some things are scary in their own right. When you look at the kind of how movies impact. I remember there's a woman I know, and she just will throw casually about her life experience. She's like, well, when I was in a Romanian gypsy camp, I remember, and like, who starts out a story that way? But even who
even has that life experience?
Exactly. Yeah. And when you think about those things, I mean, even in that Transylvania area with the vampires and things like that. And this isn't to put I'm talking about stereotypes here. I'm not talking about necessarily, belittling gypsies, but, gypsy camps, I mean, were a lot of times known or kind of had a stigma for, they'd walk into town and they'd leave and a child or two would go missing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wonder how much things like that, how much human influence had on, thinking it was a vampire or the Salem witch trials. It was a witch, like get her. Yeah. And how much, human, kind of influences on towns and situations in the culture contributed to that. Was Jack the Ripper that big serial killer lore that we put him up to be, or was it just some guy? I mean, there's people that kill nowadays that we don't put the stigma of the Jack the Ripper.
Absolutely,
I mean, that's like this. It's now this mythological creature. It's almost like Bigfoot. He can't be real.
But like the thing is in 100 years, will we look back at like the Jeffrey Dahmers in the same? I don't want to say they're revered, but like in the same historical context as Jack the Ripper. I mean, I think the thing about Jack the Ripper is he was never caught.
Yeah,
he just disappeared.
Well, Zodiac killer, there's the same thing, but I don't get the same.
Speaking of that, have you heard the theories about Senator Ted Cruz being the Zodiac killer?
Really?
Yeah, you gotta check that out in your free time. It's pretty funny. He's actually even acknowledged like the conspiracy theory on his Twitter account by saying, I'm not the Zodiac killer, but thanks for the laughs.
But here's the thing. When you start putting the pieces together, if you become president, you can give immunity to yourself.
That's true.
I mean, is that the? Would that be the goal?
Is that the end goal? Yeah.
Donald Trump is. Do you promise to uphold the values of the United States? And they're going through the whole thing, and then he's like, "I do," and you are now the president of the United States, and I'm the Zodiac killer. Da 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 da. Bump, and he runs off the stage, and that's it. What are you gonna do? Wow. I don't know how we got there.
No, but I mean, like talking about Jack the Ripper. I mean, it's a thing where, yeah. I mean, do we glorify it just because it's something that we don't understand that's never been solved?
Yeah, that's true. I think.
Do we come up with some kind of explanation to it?
Yeah, mystery and unknown is a scary piece, and that's where I think again, aliens are something that. There's just circumstantial evidence. Nobody's ever produced a video that showed a clear-cut alien that we said, "Oh yeah, that's not CGI," or "Oh yeah, this."
Well, that we've seen.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Nobody's pretended something that if they had that guy a while back that said he had caught Bigfoot and he had the corpse and he was touring the country showing off the dead body and stuff, and it ended up being a fake body. If somebody came and said, "Yep, here's this alien," and we looked at it, we're like, wow, that's an alien, and now we're scared. Like that would prove something. But I think that unknown element, that it could be, that's almost more scary than even if you did. Yeah. Because I think when you know things, snakes are poisonous. I know that. I don't want to be around snakes, but I feel as though, again, antivenom, and I have this recourse. Where aliens, it's an unknown. Are they friendly? Are they not? Or how's it going to be?
Like even with like vampires. Mm-hmm. And there's movies that have covered this about they have this secret society that works behind the scenes and things like that, and they're really the puppet masters and things like that. The
Illuminati?
Yeah. And you watch those movies and you're just like, I don't believe that's true, but if they've been around for thousands of years,
why not?
That's the plausible explanation. If if they do exist, there's no reason why they wouldn't be the puppet masters behind the scenes.
Your mind fills in the gaps. And this takes me back to that the comment about things that you're scared of when you're a child can influence you now. I think that's why oftentimes kids are so scared of things, and I think they take that with them because they fill in the gaps. When you think that there's a monster under your bed, it's not the fact that you look under your bed, you see there's no monster, the dad or mom shows you, look, it's going to be okay. They get back into bed, they go under the covers because they're petrified, because they fill in the gaps of what it looks like and how's it going to get them, and all of those things, and they make it
camouflage itself so mom and dad can't see it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they make this bigger, grandiose thing in their mind, and then I think that stays with them. And so, I mean, maybe the invisible people would scare you, or ghosts being, kind of apparitions would be scary to them.
The really terrifying thing is, they've done studies now that have shown that, kids are maybe a little bit more perceptive and can see things that adults maybe can't.
Yeah.
And, there are psychologists that believe that kids are, because they haven't been jaded by the quote-unquote real world, that, they're able to perceive on either a higher or lower level than we are. And I say higher or lower. I don't know why I say lower.
well, I think you say lower because you and I are children at heart, and we're pretty simple. And so if a child can understand it, surely we should be able to understand it. Surely. No, but I take your point. I mean, I think that, children could... because they have that they're not blocked by any of that kind of the.
They haven't been told their entire life that isn't real.
No, and it's similar to how I wouldn't say children are gullible. They're hopeful when and there's a discrepancy whether people believe that you should tell a child about the realities of Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy or things like that. I mean, you always, should you be honest, or should you let them believe in the power of their own dreams? But I think that they do have this kind of innocence where they just believe that something could be true, and so that can be scary. Some kids are scared of Santa Claus because they fill in the gaps of, he comes into my house at night
through the chimney,
and he eats my cookies. You just that was a very Miss Piggy thing.
To bring it back full circle here with what we're talking about, though. when I was a little kid, I remember my brother Mark had rented the movie Silent Night, Deadly Night. And it's about Santa Claus going on like a murdering spree.
There's like killer clowns from outer space.
Well, and I remember walking into like into the basement, and Santa's like blowing these people away, and it was like so terrifying. My dad walked in the room. He's like, "What is this filth?"
Movies have that impact on you, and here's the thing. Movies can scare you. Books can scare you. Just being in the same room with you, John, sometimes scares me. But I think...
Well, it's the fear of the unknown.
That's
a fear
really
what it's all about.
You are unknown.
You don't know what I'm going to do.
I think everybody out there has something that they're scared of, and it's been a pleasure and a joy sharing my fears with you, John. All I need is for you to hold my hand, and we'll get through this together.
I'll hold you, Josh.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening to Pop Culture Problems. We'll see you next time.